Welcome. This is Artist Trauma, and this week we did something pretty dramatic, as it were. We did Dear Akutagawa Yunosuke, um, Hell Screen, and other stories. So, Chris, you were telling me that you had a
Mhm.
reaction to these works.
Yeah, I did. I mean, and I don't always have a very like deep emotional reaction. I have sometimes more of a cerebral reaction or anywhere on the spectrum. But yeah, I felt that in Hellscreen some of the autobiographical stuff comes through, but when we actually read the autobiographical what would be called like literary nonfiction, autobiographical fiction, free writing, whatever you want to call it. It's been around forever. But I just got kind of sad. He has sort of a sad life and he's very desperate and he can't do anything to better himself that like other people would do, and he like kind of abandons his family a lot of times, but you kind of pity him. It's like he stops cheating on his wife because he is able to put his love into a poem when he meets a girl, and you're like, that's just kind of sad. I don't know, I mean, it's a triumph on one level because he stops cheating. On the other level, it's like, oh, ow, wow, this guy really feels life very deeply and it doesn't go well. And in the one that I chose, it's literally his psychic disillusion. Like his psyche is kind of starting to fall apart, spinning gears, literally.
Yeah, Spinning Gears is just we'll get there. Jesus Christ, I love Spinning Gears.
I
Absolute.
love spinning gears because it's a suicidal portrait. It's like obviously the fragment one, Portrait of a Stupid Man, I love that, is more literary. Spinning gears is kind of more viscerally like I'm dying.
Yeah. But let's first start off with something a little more cheery. Hellscream, which is his most famous work. I basically, at least his greatest work, from at least what I've read of him. I mean, better. I mean, Rosh. I mean, uh, not Rashomon, but the other one.
In a bamboo grove.
In Bamboo Grove, that's his most famous, but which we didn't do for some reason. But whatever.
I
Just
mean, it's fine. I mean, it's objectively great. I just am not. It doesn't like resonate with me like Hellscreen or some of these others. Like,
Elskian's got more of a human flair, and it's also got, well, in a memory, it doesn't have so much of a climax, such a spectacular, overwhelming, shocking climax.
yeah, it's like one of the. It's. I mean, you could say it's like the climax in all of early Japanese modernism. Like, there's no. It's like I can't think of anything that compares to it
Yeah.
in a lot of things.
Let's
It's
talk
let's tell the
about.
story. It's a very simple story. Painter is a miser. He's kind of got demonic qualities. He's ugly, um, and he's the best painter in the
Horrifically
land, but
arrogant.
arrogant. He knows he's great, and he also has a sort of touch of the demonic in his painting. Like he's like a Francis Bacon type
Yeah, I mean, at one
guy.
point, his lordship says, "You really like it. The uglier, the better it is for you, isn't it?" And he said, "Yes. Other painters are so mediocre as to not be able to find beauty in ugliness." It's like it's
It's like
such.
sure, so,
I
and
mean,
it's
I
and if
love
you
that. I
take him
love
as, I
that.
mean, I love that, but like, and it's true, but there's also an aspect of like humor.
Yeah,
He's always funny. Akutagawa somehow is tragicomic all the time. He's always a soap opera. So the only thing he cares about is his daughter, who gets pressed into service by the emperor. This is like in a feudal era, and like before Meiji or something. Doesn't matter. Just picture generic feudal things, and you got the picture. It's not that complicated. And she's a handmaiden to the queen, king, or whatever, and she's very nice. She's the opposite of her father. Um, and the narrator is dumb in a really great way. He's
well,
going, my little,
actually, that's how my opinion used to be.
yeah.
That he's dumb, but actually, my opinions now is like, no, he's actually an intensely intelligent man, but he's
Mm.
just so overwhelmed with irony. Like it's just dripping from him. I didn't get that someone else sort of brought that up who read it in the original Japanese.
I
Uh,
can see that utterly, and that would have be hard to translate. And that makes total sense because then he's like, "Oh, I can't accept that my emperor is going against the station with this girl and attacking her or whatever. Oh, that's not possible.
Yeah,
Or just has like a
but we have to be
fixation
clear.
on
The
him.
irony is laid on so thick with this narrator. He is really just every word like he's constantly celebrating the gloriousness of the emperor, and every little detail he ever gives you makes the emperor to be this petty, spiteful, lecherous monster. It's really beautiful.
Yes. Yes. That's very true. And I think the movement from stupid to ironic is one I can immediately accept, actually. No, no. It's just like, yes, because like he we'll go, yeah, so that's the figure of the emperor, and the daughter's in service, and the emperor clearly wants the girl, and the girl doesn't want him. And really importantly, the daughter courts favor with a monkey who looks like her dad in a funny
Yes, yes,
way,
he's called
because her
Yoshihide.
dad looks like a monkey.
Yeah.
Yoshihide, yeah, and they have this relationship because the emperor's son is just a mean little kid and beats the monkey, and she doesn't, and the monkey becomes basically her support animal, her daemon, her familiar, if whatever, soul bonded to this person. Um, and So the plot gets rolling when the painter is asked to make a hell screen, and in order to do so, he
Yeah,
starts torturing everyone around him.
yeah. And let's
Yeah.
get into that a little more, and let's say a few more words
Yes.
about Yoshihide as a character. Yeah, as I mentioned, he's overwhelmingly arrogant. He's got this hideous, perverse quality to him to an extent. But the thing is that he's utterly devoted to his art. He's
Utterly.
utterly
So devoted.
he has this vision of suffering in whatever form that occurs, and he's just utterly devoted to doing it. It's like he'll spend hours just drawing a corpse of a man found in a ditch, down to the last hair. He in some of the things that are accounted for the hell screen, it's like he bothers to have these dreams of seeing the other life so that he can get exactly right what these terrible demons are like. He's basically torturing his poor students and disciples to
Torturing
get
him.
them.
He also has a premonition. In his dream, he has the premonition, he's going to follow his daughter to
Mhm.
hell,
Yeah.
which is going to happen. He has one limitation, which is why he is torturing everyone. I mean, why is he actually torturing everyone is more complicated, but like, this is what we get. Indeed, sir, as a rule, I can only paint what I have seen. Or even if I succeed in painting something unknown to me, I myself cannot be satisfied with it. This is the same as not being able to paint it. Does his lordship not agree? And it's quite the limitation there, buddy.
When
It's
you're
pretty
trying to paint
great,
a hell
actually.
screen, that's a challenge. Now, I love that
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Actually, just on a more theoretical note, like
Yes.
that move on the part of Yoshihide and Akutagawa. The Akutagawa, like he does. How much of that would we say almost is Akutagawa? Like his own sort of artistic vision versus just versus just like yeah, like this is how the plot has to go in order to make sense of it. Because there's a way like he does a lot of these sort of more fantastic stories like this, Akutagawa, where it is, a dragon rising out of a pond, some odd medicinal tale, man getting horse legs, whatever. Like these things, but there's another sense in which it's like, yeah, but it's playing off of it's not about those things. It's about like the human perceptions and responses and that whole aspect of nature.
And
Um,
it's always mediated like by a narrator or interjections from him, like we'll get to it, but yeah, in Green Onions, there's a frame narrative of him wanting to write a story in one night, which is not as related to the story, but like there's always a psychological distancing. And in Hellscreen, of course, that functions to make it bearable. I
Yeah,
mean, I think like this is really a story about the real in so many ways. Like it's without that humor, it's like this would just be awful.
yeah, it would. God, what would it even be like? I mean, one thing is like you desperately want the narrator in this story because he's such a interesting character. In his subtle way, like just that constant laying on of irony, that continual perceptiveness, that um
Hmm.
just that wry smile behind every word. It's like you love this man. I love this man so desperately.
He's
uh
more a part of Akutagawa's psyche than maybe some of the other characters.
well, it's interesting we get to dear life of a stupid man, because like he has this quality to him where he's saying, like, on the one hand he is like violently passionate, but there's also this sort of extraordinarily rationalistic detachment that occurs with him. So
Yeah, and that also manifests in some of the humor. Like he goes like, this letter is asking me to write the state of the modern Japanese woman. And then he like references Hell Screen. And he was like, that's an odd choice, isn't it there? I don't know why they're asking me. And of course, it's funny because it's true. Like you read his stories and okay, maybe there's something in Green Onions, but like it seems very random. He's not exactly equipped to answer that question. Because it's just totally absurd. I mean, that's obviously the joke, is it's just random. But I think he made a deep point here about his I can only pay when I have seen as being a portion of Akutagawa because um he he kind of needs to be there at the scene. Like the narrator or the frame narrator in Green Onions or just the way he jumps into sort of fictionalizing his own life in the portrait of a stupid man. Like there's still like he doesn't just write a fairy tale ever. And I haven't done Kappa, but that's always referenced as one of his more autobiographical ones. And part of me goes, I don't know. Bless you. It's, he's not comfortable with his own presence, but he's disastrously uncomfortable with his absence. Would be one way to think about it.
let's see, how do you mean that?
Well, like in spinning gears, there's a lot of things that are supposed to be fictional, and we'll get to what that is, that have just become mental illness. The paranoia, the images, the doppelgangers. Um, and there's a sense that fiction sort of helps him distance himself from that horror. But I don't read any of these stories without his presence,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. That's more of a complicated point, but that's sort of step one, maybe.
yeah. Well, yeah, well, anyway, getting back to
Yeah, yeah. Let's finish the outline here. So he paints 80% of this by torturing his students. One, like he has attacked by an owl, which is pretty great. Um, so but he can't finish this 20% because he needs an image of a carriage on fire with a woman being burned alive. Just needs that. Just needs that last touch. There is a sort of thing. The first time I read this, I went, I can see it. Like there's a certain like like deep interesting thing about this story is he can't paint it without seeing it, but we get a story where I can see it without having really seen it.
well, to like recreate it. It's like, yeah, like that's the point. Like
Yeah,
to convey the essence. Like we wouldn't see it had he not seen it, as it were. Um,
right. Um, so then he goes to the emperor and goes, "I need this to happen. You need to make I need you to set on fire a carriage and put a woman on it, and I need to watch that. And the emperor goes, sounds great. It's like, I'll do
And,
that.
like this is rather disconcerting to have his desire acceded so quickly. But as it turns out, the woman is his daughter who has rejected the emperor's uh, advances. And we get, this just absolutely horrific, nightmarish sequence of seeing the daughter like just burnt alive, along with very suddenly the monkey, running in with her, swallowed
Hmm.
alive in the smoke and flames. And of course for Yoshihide, it's a moment of ecstasy, of artistic ecstasy after the initial shock. It's everything that he wanted in order to create what he needed, and he very shortly thereafter kills himself um, after completing the painting.
Which makes sense. I
Yeah,
mean, he goes
and
down to be with
that's how it
his
goes.
daughter in hell.
Yeah, that's how it
Yeah, that's
goes.
how it goes. I mean, it's sort of this is obviously modernist storytelling, but it's also classically it's like, well, we're
No,
not going to just leave him
just,
alone
this
after
is the
that.
perfectly normal way of like presenting a story, as it were. Like this is, just a nice
Yeah.
setup, build up climax, payoff, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, like this is just how it goes.
Yeah, it's like very naturalistic in a weird way. And I say weird just because the imagery itself is so horrifying for how satisfying and A to B the structure is.
Yeah. Now, one question I have here is how in control of himself do you see Yoshihide, the painter? How much do you see him as actually like choosing what's happening here versus like he's just in the throes of a desperate passion, like a slave to his own desires?
Um, I think the only crack in that slave to his own desires thing is his daughter. He cares about her. Like it's like there's some phrase that's like everything works like A except his daughter, which works like B. So the only crack is the daughter. And so um I think why it's on the tragic comedy side, it chooses horror, because this is truly a basically horror story, is that he chooses, or maybe not, maybe chooses the wrong words, but follows through with the artwork instead of leaping to save his daughter. Now, he doesn't really have the true ability to save his daughter, right? Because there's a samurai guarding him.
Yeah, but at least he would. I mean, I think any other parent in that situation would have risked the slaughter. Um, I think that's so like him just sort of staying stock still, and then as in as it were,
Mhm.
the monkey ran in. He didn't.
There's another, it reminds me, there's a really, I thought it was a horrible book when I was in eighth grade, because I remember it, called The Man Who Was Poe. And it had a similar message where it's Edgar Allan Poe for some reason starts caring for two orphan children's. This is a bad novel, but I don't know, I don't remember why. And they're on a goose chase to find something, and he's obsessed with doing the perfect story, right? Which Poe wasn't. I don't know where this comes from. This is just bad writing. But in that, it's the same thing. Like there's a moment where he almost, I think, lets the two kids drown, and someone else saves him because he goes, "Oh, it would have been more poetic and perfect narratively if they died." And like that's a similar type of thing. It's like more perfect to follow through in this with the image. The difference is, of course, is that I think the only reason the story works is because there has to be an element in us that can't accept that. Because it's like burning a woman alive. It's like the most horrifying thing you can think of.
Yeah,
And so you're torn between the narrative satisfaction of it and the horror of it.
yeah. I mean, it's really just the perfect example of
You cut out right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. It really it's a
You
perfect
cut
example.
out. Say that all again.
Oh, damn it all. It's really just a great example. I mean, why is this good? Well, that's bad. Well, one thing is like it's there's a this convulsive quality to what he's doing of like he's very reluctant to ask the emperor for this terrible terrible crime that he wants to commit an actual murder, as it were. Like he's and there's a certain like self horror, like when the desire is acceded to. Um, when he actually is seeing it, it's like I guess there's a good point just to say, like, yeah, there's nothing he could actually do, and he realizes that initially. Um, like this is just now destined to befall before him. So there's like these points to make about it. Like there's enough of like a human being in Yoshihide that like he isn't just a like weird morbid aesthete who's just sort of sacrificing human beings in this very tedious fashion. Um, there's a heart there, and there kind of needs to be a heart there for him to like actually, for it to mean something. For it to actually like be the full horrific event that he wants it to be. So like those things strike me as like why this is better than that.
Yeah. I mean, I also think that again, the mediation that like this is all told through a different person helps. Like I think this story would be um really interesting maybe, but if it was told from the I perspective of Yoshihide,
Oh,
um I don't think it would work though,
yeah, it's
because you need that sort of external, you need someone to be watching his face.
yeah. You need someone external. I mean, because basically the narrator is practically speaking third person omniscient. Like he comes into the narrative very briefly because he's just some member of the
Sure.
court. Um, and basically the first person aspect of it just sort of adds a certain presence, immediacy to it. What's interesting about it, though, in addition, is like I like the sense of here's another kind of human being in Akutagawa's world. You have someone like the lecherous, petty emperor. You have the morbidly obsessed Yoshihide. You have the delicately gentle daughter, and then you have the very intelligent and detached narrator who looks at it all with irony. Who is like that adds another just touch, another flavor to this universe. Of like, yeah, like you, if if you're smart and if you luckily don't get caught up in wanting things like Yoshihide does, then you can maybe kind of get by. Um, you know,
Sure. I mean, I mean that's sort of gonna be there in a lot of Japanese literature. Um, Not in the particularly moral sense that it is in Balzac. Like, your passions assail you from a genealogical view, and there's a Christian element. In Japan, there's more of like a eudaimonia, like the good life. It's not like a sin to be bad, but it's more Aristotelian, like it breeds bad juju, I guess. That's not, don't quote me on that. I'm not a scholar of religion. But there is more of a character element to the ethic and morality than there is in like these same flavor of writers in the West, where there's the element of sin. Sometimes I think reading this story is kind of horrifying as a Westerner because there is kind of Like Akutagawa believes in heaven, hell. Sorry, oh my gosh, hell. But like he doesn't need a contrasting heaven, which is really awesome. Remember that?
Yeah, no, that yeah, well, as in
Yeah.
what he says to to the old Christian he sometimes talks to is
Oh
like
yeah, yeah. He's arguing with the Christian
I
dude.
could believe in the devil, just not God. Which is which, by the way, there was a period in my life where I felt I actually said something similar to like a Christian. I'm just gonna like I could believe in like a source of like endless suffering in this world. Just not a benevolent God. Um, my PhD wasn't going well at that time. But, but
Well,
yeah, it was. But no,
no, I
like
mean, and that's very human. Like there's some aspects of this that are Eastern, but that's just more human, right? Because the man is tortured by himself. So it makes sense that salvation's hard to come by.
well, and also like Akutagawa is a very westernized Japanese writer, as it were. He's I mean, like so many of the little things from Life of a Stupid Man is his like intense admiration for like the whole fin deceit turn of the century literature of Dostoevsky and Strindberg comes up like three, four times in this fucking book.
Love Strindberg's like his favorite, and I can see that.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
real connection.
Actually, yeah. Now I think about it, Hellscream
Well, and that
is
this era,
Strindbergian thing I've read outside of Strindberg. It has that same like furious
yeah.
tension. It has that same manic quality. It has that same like my whole soul is getting burnt up. Like I was saying about Balzac earlier, of like, oh yeah, like this is that sort of abject commitment to some value which he has so often the time. But no, this is more Strindberg and just the pure desperation
Well,
of it.
yeah, yeah, like the desperation is there. Balzac has that, but it's more of a hidden kernel. He's still sort of doing morality plays.
A
You know,
little.
there's still a moral thing in there. Balzac's sublime, of course, because he like doesn't really do morality plays. He just kind of does them. You know, he's kind of in between here. This is clearly not a morality play. I mean, that's why my favorite line in the book was like, he said, what did I text you? He says, some people will find this objectionable or something. Like it's so over the top. There were many highly critical of the event. You're like, you don't say. Like, you mean not a lot of people liked it when those in power set a woman on fire to her death to appease his favorite artist? Really? I'm shocked. I'm really shocked. I can't believe that.
And he did it out of spite because she refused his sexual advances. Like
What?
this is not this is a porn film.
Blasphemy.
Um, God, it's just
No,
outrageous.
it's great. I mean, I think you're right, first of all, in saying this is the first generation of like truly westernized. Actually, it's kind of generation 1.5, right? Because Kawabata comes a little after, but you know, I Am a Cat,
Yes, yes.
wrote all the
He's like,
Soseki, the family, Soseki's kind of thought of as the father of the modern Japanese novel, and he has an impact. He's like the master of the time. He's like Charles Dickens for Americans. It's like, oh, Charles Dickens for Americans. You know what I mean? Mark Twain, Jesus Christ.
uh,
Or like Hawthorne, even. Like because like Hawthorne would be like Soseki, and like Mark Twain would be more like Mishima. It's just happening 100 years later.
yeah, but yeah. So it's
By the way, I'm so sorry. Your internet's been so bad, Ray. It's
oh
the whole time it's been cutting in and out.
my God.
Um, I mean, just the timeline for me is like in generations, Mishima is like Mark Twain, and the previous generation would be like Hawthorne, and Akutagawa. He's really at this birth of the Japanese story, but like not the Japanese story as just Japan. it's the Japanese story with a man who's obsessed with every Western writer. He doesn't, he references like his colleagues, and he talks about the masters of his time, but it's very clear Rousseau, Voltaire. I mean, he goes way back. Those are his influences. Dostoevsky. Like, I don't. It's almost like he internalized Japanese culture, but the writing is Western.
Yeah, it has this distinctive Japanese flavor, especially the life of a stupid man, like that. Just how impressionistic the details are, just the little bits and scraps, just strike me as Japanese, I guess.
Yeah, they're like Tonka. They're um, the ephemerality of life, nature image, seasonal positioning. It's all there, which we don't have. I mean, now we do because everyone's reading Japanese books.
But
Let's do really quick. I think my least favorite, but still very fun, and I think we can just talk about it really briefly. Let's talk about green onions.
yeah, let's talk about that one because it's such a different one of the three, four. Because it's just this cute little narrative of like this well, a writer who needs to finish a story, and the story he's telling is about Okimi, this waitress who's
Mhm.
got some slight artistic aspirations, as it were, but basically just reads pulp, and who's asked out on a date by a young aesthete who's rather attractive and comes dime a dozen in his very superficial, pathetic way. And basically how the story, I mean, goes like, okay, there's certain concern about dear old Kimmy because she's, this nice virginal girl, I guess, who's just without a whole lot of taste and getting tricked by this man who's, this pompous aesthete. And what happens is they're walking along to the date, and oh, it turns out green onions are on sale. And she goes and grabs the green onions for their surprisingly low amount, and the smell of the green onions rather kills the mood for the rest of the date. There's ambiguity about the future of her anatomical wholeness, but that's a question for a later date. But that particular evening, basically, all the romance, all the sentimentality has been removed by this singular invasion of daily life and concerns.
But not for her.
Yes.
That's the sauce. That's the only way that makes the story anything more than just like a throwaway is for me is the description of her coming beaming back to the guy like they're on sale. She's so like she doesn't register this as a faux pas.
Yeah, I think it sort of just it does like ruin the mood for the date though. Like just having them around, like whatever it is, however, like
Oh yeah, but like after, not like at first she doesn't realize it. Her
yeah, for
first
sure.
thought is I'm impoverished. This is great.
Yeah.
Look at these onions.
And it's but the fun things about it are just the way that, I mean, just like her aspirations for culture and how, yeah, I can't remember who it is she has on her, who she thinks she has on her wall. It's like she thinks she has like Rousseau or some George Charles Dickens, and but no, it's actually Woodrow Wilson. She doesn't
Oh,
even know it's Woodrow
it was
Wilson.
no, it was a it's a we're harkening back to the Tin Drum. It's Beethoven. And a second story where
Yeah,
we get the same powerful
yes,
Beethoven image used.
we get this time we get a pseudo portrait of Beethoven.
A Beethoven, but it's actually Woodrow Wilson. And then if you think about, I was like having a lot of fun
Was
because I was
present
thinking
at the
about,
time, by the way. I just want to put that out. This isn't a historical figure. This is a president, at least very recently.
yeah, it'd be like having George W. Bush. Actually, it'd almost be exactly like timeline having George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush and saying that's Beethoven. You can still use Beethoven, of course, but um, and what's funny, of course, is Woodrow Wilson is ugly. I mean, he's fine. Well, not ugly, but he's just sort of like, okay,
Like
so
fine.
Beethoven,
And he's,
wide face,
yeah,
not
well, the thing is, he looks intelligent with Wilson. At least give him that. He's not, he's not, I don't know, a marvelous human being. I don't know.
sorry. No, he's not ugly. I'm sorry. In my mind, I did something really silly as I heard Woodrow Wilson and I pictured Bruckner. Um, don't worry about that. But Woodrow Wilson, I think the most important difference is the time, obviously, but also just like famous Beethoven to Beethoven are like, the hair's big, furrowed brow, intense, and Woodrow Wilson's just like a guy. He's fine, but he's all put together. It's not romantic in any sense. It's distinctly bureaucratic.
Yeah, it's very funny that she has that picture on her wall, and God knows if she's ever heard Beethoven. Frankly, no, she
And
probably heard a little bit, like being
I
played.
mean,
Like,
yeah, a little. It's starting to come over, but also, this is another moment of Akutagawa sort of possibly leaking in. He's talking about Okimi's life and goes, if I'm not careful, I could just as easily be swept away by sentimentalisme as Okimi. And this is me talking. The fellow the critics are always blaming for having too little heart and too much intellect. I mean, that's got to be him, right? That can't possibly
yeah,
just be the
that's
narrator.
Akutagawa. He's explicitly referencing himself, that which is in a very endearing way.
I think that's so funny how stereotypes, like, I'm gonna believe that. I don't know if that's a joke but if we take it seriously, like critics are saying Akutagawa is too much of the intellect and not enough heart, that just doesn't age well at all. That's like maybe in a bamboo grove, but I mean, he's a very warm guy, actually.
No, I mean he's. I mean you can't. I mean to me, like when I read Elsewhere, like I'm crying. Like I'm crying.
Yeah, it's
It's
deeply emotional.
heartbreaking.
Yes.
like you can't read, little monkey running in after the girl. It's like that's just devastating.
And I've not read one scrap of Akutagawa that doesn't just have tons of heart. So I don't know if that stereotype does exist. I wonder if it's sort of like Western experiments in modernism coming over, and that we just don't have that
No,
worry.
I think part of it is it's a superficial reading of Akutagawa, as in, I think for a Japanese author reading Hellscreen, it's probably like, yeah, like this guy's very ironic. Like they can just pick up on that more, and it's more in their traditional thing. So like that, they like the fact that the narrator is like that instead of on some level the narrator's heart is breaking while you have it. It's like, someone who's more superficial is like, well, I mean, this narrator is pretty cold. You read like a lot of these other stories, and there is this kind of like, humorous detachment, in a way, and it's like you don't realize that, like, well, either you laugh at life or you cry it. Those are your two options, and Akutagawa, generally speaking, goes for the former. Um, uh, so,
Yeah,
that's the way I would read it. Like at least that's people just a lot of time don't realize that, like, yeah, like this is a very hurt human being under the surface.
right. Like he's hurt. Yeah. I also would say that part of the reason I wanted to choose this one is because it was nice to read one where the stakes were just a little lower.
Yes, yes, it's just
It's kind of nice because like
that
so
day.
much of this is life and death and suicide and overdose and burning people alive or whatever. And this one's sort of just like, well, it may not work out.
Yeah, it's just I mean in a certain way, is there a deeper edge to this story though, on some level
Uh-huh.
of I think about how to Madame Bovary, one of the really striking aspects of like that novel is that you have Madame Bovary, and like she Emma, and she's genuinely like having love, and falling for this man or another one, then her heart really is broken. But the thing is she expressed herself in the terms of sentimental romantic novels. Like
Yeah.
it bleeds in the inauthenticity the bourgeois complacency of those works into her like genuine expressions of love, and like that's really tragic in a very deep way. That's how it actually would work for her. And there's a question with Okimi of like, well, is there a little more of that edge there where it's like, this soulful girl, but she's sort of tricked into sentimentalisme, always, in such admiration of the cuckoo. I mean, maybe in a certain way, there's a feeling of, yeah, it's sort of a shame that Okimi is so sentimental. That's part of the reason why she falls for this fucking loser, who was not successful this evening, but some other evening will probably be quite successful. At
I think,
to
yeah,
her own
I think
personal disaster.
I think you're on a really deep point here, and my evidence would be I like Okemi. I don't
Yeah,
know, like that's not really good. Like just personally, I don't know. It's
yeah,
like
she means well. Like, and she's
I like her. Yeah, you read her and you're very sympathetic to her. She almost becomes a figure of romance in a weird way that he can't. And there's a certain innocence there, which is kind of permanent. When the green onions come in, I think here's the deeper part. When the green onions come in, it's almost like nothing's going to defeat her version of reality. Like he's not going to win the battle.
well. I mean, the thing is,
Or make that, yeah, yeah, edit
he
that.
does. Again, it's like Akutagawa
Tries.
to say, well, it didn't work out this evening, but well, she's not out of the woods yet. Um, Unfortunately.
Well, sure. Although, I mean, I think there's also a window where it wouldn't be like, would it be devastating to her to hook up with this guy?
I mean, it would be sort. I mean, I would say, at least the way I'd imagine it is, she'd get into sort of like a sentimental love affair with him. Like she'd think there's something real going on here. Like, a lot of projection, obviously,
Sure.
but like real feelings there. And well, he is just kind of there for the sex, I presume. Like he is presented as a twink or something,
Not a twink, a dandy.
a dandy.
A twink would be something different.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know these terms.
Yeah, that'd be a feminine gay man.
Okay, I
The
don't know.
dandy bleeds
People.
over, but yeah, the dandy is the
Yeah,
figure.
it's. I don't know how these words work because everyone calls that Timothy Chalamet a twink, and it's sort of it's like, and women love him. So is that I don't know how this word works. So okay, I understand now. It is derogatory.
Timothy Chalamet act and a lot of times in his movies looks like a dandy. In real life, of course, we know he's a frat bro. But I like his acting a lot. Sorry. But yes, like he kind of has the look of a dandy, like kind of thin, feminine features, long hair, suits, whatever. Yeah. So that's the same thing as this guy. But he's also sort of presented in this story as like a pickup guy, you know. But it's
Yeah,
kind of harmless. I don't know. Again, like when I say the stakes are lower, I'm not saying that
it's
the
low.
depth
It is
is
low.
yeah,
I,
but the depth isn't lacking. It's not like it's the end of the world that he's a pickup artist. It's just he's
yeah,
just like that.
it's well. The thing is, I'll say about it is that it's like a real life. Like I imagine Okimi will be quite hurt in the end. It won't be the end of her life, but there'll. It's a little like there are girls out there who like their first sort of romantic involvement is with a guy who is not emotionally present, let's say. Um, and that is very very painful for them. That is a fact that is difficult for them to overcome. So yeah, it's not
Sure.
so
Yeah,
it's not immolation.
but it is deep because this is the story. It's a timeless story, except for one thing, which is again, it's a frame narrative. He constantly is interjecting, going like, "We're getting to the climax now," or what does he say? Like, I feel for this. So like, and that for me, it does two things. First of all, my first thought reading it in a negative sense was Oh, he's really influenced by 19th century Western frame narratives. And I was like kind of off put. Like I was like, oh, I don't know if this one. And then my second thought is like, I mean, the way he's lightly dealing with the writing really perfectly mirrors the tone of the story itself. It's almost like a dance between a love affair, if you want to be cheesy, between the writing of the story and the execution of it.
No, I think it's really I think it adds a lot to the story. It
It
adds this
does, yeah.
sort of like slight, very easy sort of hurry. I mean, okay, actually one thing that's interesting about the whole, I mean, thematically it's relevant because again, what is it that sort of undermines this sort of sentimental it's like it's concern with practical monetary, just monetary concerns. He has to write the story now. Why? Because he needs the money. you know?
Use the money, yeah.
So it's like he's in that same place and he's writing in this kind of gentle, sentimental, sen- mock sentimental tones.
I mean, he literally at one point describes a thing over the top and then just trails off going, love, love, love. Which was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that's good. Do you want to talk? Let's talk a little bit about the autobiographical things
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Is there anything about Green Onions?
No, I think we're good. I just think like
Mhm.
it's just I'm actually very glad to sort of tie both of like basically how the narration and the narrator ties into the story. And like is relevant thematically of it's been a question for me like like how good of a aesthetic move is it to have the narrator participate as it were.
Hmm.
um and I'm more and more on the side of it can be pretty good, it can be pretty solid.
There's two sides. The danger, of course, is it can be distracting. Like I was reading a horror book where it was all really gross and horrible, and then like for arbitrarily on chapter 8, it went, "Now, dear reader, the next chapter is going to be the most horrifying thing," and I was like, "This is really bad." Um, it can be terrible, but what it also does is, and I sound like a broken record here, but I think this is because it's a problem I'm dealing with in my own writing, is we need to peer in on the world in a human way. And sometimes if it's just first person or just here's the story and there's no mediation and no telling, um, it can be kind of flat. It weirdly the distance brings green onions to life. And I think that's really complicated, but I think that that's why the frame narrative of the 19th century, and I say the 19th century, obviously, frame narratives go back to the beginning of all storytelling. The first stories are mainly frame narratives. But like the founding document in Arabian culture, like the Thousand and One Nights, it's a frame narrative. All of Socrates is a frame narrative. So I think it's way deeper than just one era. Um, it weirdly makes it more believable, and for this story, I think it works.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay, so get on to Life of a Stupid Man. Now this one is basically just a bunch of little like reflections from Akutagawa's life, and it's not fictional. It's just these are things that happen.
And
Um,
it's some of the most heartfelt, deep, restrained writing I've ever seen.
yeah, I mean, just the first one needs to be like put here is like he's on the top of like this ladder looking at the Western books and like Maupassant, Baudelaire, Strindberg, Ibsen, Shaw, Tolstoy. The sun threatened to set before long, but he went on reading the book spine with undiminished intensity. Lined up before him was not so much an array of books as the thin deceit itself. Um, and it's getting darker. Light bulb turns on, and standing on the perch on top of the ladder, he looked down the clerks and customers moving among the books. They were strangely small and shabby. Life is not worth a single line of Baudelaire. He stood on the ladder, watching them below. Like that's just what a perfect. I mean, by the way, Yoshi Haida could have said that. It's that sense of again all of these like relatively dark, morbid writers. He goes on by the way, Nietzsche, Dostoevsky, Hoppe, and Flaubert, and it's like yes, these much more morbid writers, much darker writers, as it were. And this is something he admires, he's obsessed with, it's to his soul. And then he looks at life and he just feels shabby, not worth a single line of Baudelaire. Like that's just wonderful. That's just beautiful.
Yeah. And so what we get, I mean, we get the artist's dilemma, obviously, just in its more crystallized form. Um, like there's the art versus life dichotomy, of course, but that's not important. What's important is Akutagawa is just so fucking honest. Like this is where it's more Japanese, right? Like it's so like everything is crystallized into these images and it's so precise that the emotion just tumbles out. Like, I read that and I went, yeah. I think sometimes when I read my favorite haikus, it's not that I want to write a book of analyses like I do with a lot of Western writers. I just kind of go, yeah. And a lot of these ones I just went, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just just like the end of the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we have to get these faster, but he often wondered in that suburban second story if people who loved each other had to cause each other pain. Even as the thought crossed his mind, he was aware of the floor's eerie tilt. I love that last detail. I love how it fits with that little saying of like, is this just the human condition? And then it's like, and he's looking at the world, and yeah, the floor has this eerie tilt. It's screwed up. It's off. Like just physically, that's such a beautiful detail to end on.
Yeah, it's like a fundamental unevenness or shakiness. Um,
Yeah,
my
and
favorite one, and by the way, he goes through his whole life, but they're kind of like not like we don't have to do this in order. I mean, we can kind of skip
yeah,
around.
yeah,
It's like,
whatever, yeah,
like
whatever.
he writes the poem. My favorite one is 34 about Cezanne. At 30, he found himself loving a piece of vacant land. It contained only some moss and scattered bits of brick and tile. To his eyes, however, it was exactly like a Cezanne landscape. He suddenly recalled his passions of 7 or 8 years earlier, and when he did so, he realized that 7 or 8 years earlier, he had known nothing about color. It's like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I feel like the same way, and it's like I think what's I mean, for me, I just have to just throw this one because it's almost saying the same thing. If it's talking about his reaction to Van Gogh and his book. Um, True, the Van Gogh was just a book of reproductions, but even in the photographs of these books, he sensed the vivid presence of nature. The passion for pictures gave him a whole new way of looking at the world. He began to pay constant attention to the curve of a branch or the swell of a woman's cheek. And it's just like that sense of, and then later it's like the way he feels Van Gogh is present, even on a lonely landscape, because he's seen, he's presented it so well, these kinds of lonely landscapes.
Yeah,
And it's just that sense of, well, first off, I just love the sense of the affection for art and how it like transforms his vision of the world and the beautiful things it sensitizes him to. I mean, that's my life because I only got into like interest in painting, looking at things and like engaging with them seriously, like in my early, in 20 or so.
yeah,
And like, I look at like high school and that like feeling like, yeah, I had very intense emotions back then, but there's something so impoverished about that existence before I knew anything about color, like 12 years ago. Um, it's like there's something very weird about looking back on that unesthetic existence I used to have, and how that wasn't a part of my life. Uh,
yeah. I mean, 100%. Like, I go, oh my gosh, I had this experience that was just like, I know now how Salah would have described it, but I hadn't read Salah. Or I know this image of how I know how Akutagawa would have described the image, but I hadn't read Akutagawa. But it smuggles itself into the past
I remember
in
like
a weird way.
yeah, and I remember like one of the most sort of striking things for me was a couple years ago was when I first really read Faulkner and Hemingway, and I had actually a surprisingly negative reaction to both of them. Like I could see the brilliance, but I
Yeah.
just found them very unpleasant to read. I now have the opposite reaction. I like them now, but like at the time it was very negative. But the thing is, like I'd be walking outside, and I would. It's like I was in their works. Like I could just hear it around me. That like just that sort of hum of the cicadas and in the dying light, and it'd just be like, yeah, this is Faulkner in some way. Like I'd just be out in the middle of noon. It's quiet with this hard light coming down. It's like, yeah, this is Hemingway right now, and I just feel it. I just feel it in my bones what these writers were trying to say that world. Um, and it's just how can I live without having experienced that?
Yes. And that all comes from three, four, one, two, three, four, five, 6 lines. I mean, it's similar. A lot of what we're talking about with his influences, he says. He's a very aware guy. I mean, in the poem in Hero, he ends, "You are what our Eastern world has bred, an electric locomotive that smells of flowering grasses." Like, oof, there it is.
and it's
That's Akutagawa, an electric motive locomotive that smells of flowering grasses. Like, that strikes me as a condensation of his whole output.
yeah, no, that's striking. That particular one, and it's by the way, there's so much stuff like. Okay, it's just like the contrast, the outrageous contrast in a certain sense. Well, it's sort of a very dreary day, and this is eight. Um, and it's like he's walking through the rain, and looking back up once again at the trolley line. The cable is still sending sharp sparks into the air. He could think of nothing in life he especially desired but those purple sparks, those wildly blooming flowers of fire. He would trade his life for the chance to hold them in his hands. I mean, that's it's the fact like how utterly beautiful he finds how he wants to everything for it for this like beautiful thing in front of him. He is this tremendously sensitive person, and then you have like 31, the great earthquake, and it's just like and he's just reflecting on like just all of the corpses just lying around, how they smell of rotting apricots. um and he says he felt something like envy as he looked at it, the corpse of a child, recalling such expressions as those whom the gods love die young. Both his sister and half brother had lost their houses to fire. His sister's husband, though, was on a suspended sentence for perjury. Too bad we didn't all die. Standing in the charred ruins, he could hardly keep from feeling this way. Like, that's like simultaneously overwhelmed, completely just committed to that moment of beauty. And then, like, too bad we didn't all die in the earthquake. Um,
Yeah, and then there's of course overtures of well, you're going to have another -1 because the husband-in-law in whatever, the sister's husband is going to commit suicide
yeah, yeah.
while on bond or whatever. I don't remember or
Yeah,
something.
it was some. It was something
Yeah,
that
he had a
happened.
bad time.
Um,
Well, and I mean even bigger, his own suicide. Like there is a
yeah,
sense that
and there's like other just like yeah, like 44
yeah,
is just like his own, like uh, soft suicide, not suicide attempt, more suicide trial. People who commit suicide usually go through like a lot of trials as they were
of
practicing.
course.
Um, and I just want to mention just the absurdity of it. Like, yeah, he's talking about like hanging himself and trying it on. Um, and he was like, he's actually measuring out the time. Like this time, everything began to cloud over after a short interval of pain. He was sure that once he got past that, he would enter death. Checking the hands of his watch, he discovered the pain lasted 1 minute and 20 some seconds. It was pitch dark outside the lattices, but the wild clucking of chickens echoed in the darkness. that's such a great detail to end on, by the way. I just, again, like he does that persistently, like this one random detail you don't expect, but like the clucking of chickens just adds to that. Like you're checking the number of seconds it takes for the pain to stop when you're killing yourself. Like it's this quotidian thing tossed in that like I don't know, like emphasizes the absurdity, the commonplaceness of it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's also quality connections. So there's an absence. We picture it as quiet as he's doing this a little. Um, and then if there was the sound, it'd be like something aggressive or loud or a scream or choking or something. And then outside it's chickens, which kind of have an edge of desperation, but it's fake because it's kind of just but it also is just something. It kind of does sound like amorphous speaking. And they're all not. None of these are very direct, but it just sort of. Those are all parts of why it seems to fit so well. The absence of sound inside versus the presence outside, and the fact that how like an egotistical man would write this. And at this point of my failure in life, I stepped to try and take suicide. At 1 minute in, I could hear the desperate howling of wolves in the distance or something, you know?
Something outrageous.
It's something outrageous, but it's chickens, and so it's kind of like,
It's a sort of pathetic and sad.
yeah.
It's just like Akutagawa.
And you can't make chickens profound.
Yeah, it's
You can't fill them with meaning.
found in this situation because of their unprofundity.
Yeah, I think that's it, actually. I think we might be stumbling onto why it works. In part is because you can't really give chickens dignity.
And
Maybe
it's
you could.
and by the way, it's like there's something just undignified about like, well, at least in the traditional portrayal of suicide, like the I guess it could be the manly suicide. It's just like I fell on my sword, and I just did what I thought was necessary. And but this is like, he's just sort of afraid of the pain. And he's just like, okay, like let me just check how long this takes in this oddly, again, coldly rationalistic fashion. Like who thinks of doing that exactly?
Yeah.
It's great. It's in character.
There's also like if you say these are the portrait of a great man and you're the writer of the portrait of a great man, like there's a problem. But when you say portrait, the life of a stupid man, there's sort of a sense that we're going to get something like the truth. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is autobiographical. We don't know if any of it's, we know the events are true, but there's going to be some creative license. It's creative memoir, right? But like how he describes the crazy lady, it's like, well, buddy, I mean, you got involved with her.
I mean,
I
it's
love the crazy lady sketches, by the way. They're
yeah,
so
yeah. She's such a striking thing. This creature whose face always seems to be in moonlight. Um, she
and
and
he tries, but there's something also he accepts in his stupidity of there's something alluring in that for
yeah,
him, even though he's trying to escape.
yeah, and it's. I mean, the stupidity is. Why does he? I wish I knew the Japanese so I had a better sense of like what do we mean by stupid exactly?
And what do we mean by crazy?
Yeah,
Because like I think like I mean, well, that's skin deep. I mean, it's everything. But yeah, beauty. I mean, what type of crazy is this? Like, do we mean like ex-girlfriend crazy, which I'm assuming we do, because I'm assuming the translators chose crazy to do like the stereotypical crazy ex-girlfriend saying.
I mean, I think it's a
Or do
little.
we mean crazy
Little.
like
I think
she's
it's
crazy?
yeah, it's like I think she's probably got some kind of instability going for her, and like the moonlight on her face is, it's like it's partly her allure, partly her unworldliness, whatever. At least I
Right.
could guess.
It's more complicated. And I also think there's an overture to, you know, he doesn't have a great relationship with his own mental health.
Yeah,
Saying that is kind of sacrilegious. Like, it's like duh, but
yeah, no, it's important to mention that because especially in the next one. I mean, like it's like why does he consider himself stupid? I mean, like one thing is like he does things that he feels are like he regrets. I imagine like these affairs, and he's. I mean, as we get into the spinning gears, like he's overburdened by his own sense of sinfulness. Um, I mean, I just sort of look at him though, and I read these, and my feeling is like, here's a guy who really gets something out of life, who like sees those purple sparks and would give
Yeah.
life through that, who sees like the piece of ground and see the Cezanne landscape. Like there are these things, but there's a way in which he can't deal with this life and he can't control his actions and it doesn't engage him. And maybe some of these really are his faults. I mean, maybe he could have just done a better fucking job with his life. I don't know. But it's
Yeah, but that doesn't like if that was I don't know, like the sadness I feel reading this isn't it's not like a missed opportunity sadness.
yeah, it's not that at all. I just I mean my reading of Akutagawa's character is it's not his fault.
Yeah, like of course.
It's just you just wish to God there was something you could do for him.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
just
like I mean even like when he does something bad, like it's clear he's not giving his family enough attention. Okay. But like look at why. Look at how life look at the dichotomy between the pursuit of art and the struggles of how life affects him requires him to withdraw and or whatever. But like, to say it's a moral failing is sort of like what who cares? Because you just kind of love him. At
yeah,
least I do. I just kind of like his character. I
I,
think
I,
he's
I would prefer him to most of the people I meet.
yeah.
So
I mean, yeah. So let's finish up with this last one here. And I mean, I think there's some I think this is a harder one to talk about.
yeah, this one
Spinning Gears is the last work we're
it's
reading, and it is really the
weird.
last work.
Yeah, and it is just something that like it's also posthumously published
Yeah.
his suicide, so it really has that quality of he's writing this the moments before he's dead. um, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean there's like he tries a little at like making it literature. Like,
no, I
he's
mean,
talking
I think this is high literature right here. Like it's a haunting image.
Oh yeah, sorry. When I phrase that, I don't mean it like that. I mean it like contrived versus psychological naturalism maybe. Like there's not a lot of traditional literary devices. We're just getting the stream of consciousness life, but one of them is the well, everything that's a literature device is also a symptom, and they just kind of come into alignment. That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
and like the sort of things that are happening, like this is a man whose mental health is deteriorating rapidly. It seems like, as in he's been seeing these like spinning gears in his left eye, every so often that often turns into like a horrific migraine. He's haunted by like these different little random like associations of like yeah, like he hears a story of like a ghost wearing a raincoat, and he keeps seeing raincoats all over the place and they disturb him very deeply. Or there's like he orders black and white whiskey, and then the next day he sees a man wearing a black and white checkered handkerchief or whatever. And it's like these things keep repeating themselves to him, and they haunt and harass him.
And he has a terrible diet, and he's sleep deprived, and he has ocular migraines, and is pre-psychotic. So, other than that, he's doing great.
Yeah, yeah, he's really and there's just these like, and at the same time he's like, the world around him at certain moments doesn't give him a lot to work with either. Like, I just remember reading this story and just the one detail that like just overwhelmed me was he's at a cafe and he happens to notice a son and mother, presumably adult son or at least late teenager, and he notices how he there's a flirtatious atmosphere between the two, and the son is knowing very well at the way he's arousing his mother in this moment. And it's like, what the fuck? What
Yeah,
the
like what are
fuck
we?
is it? Was this incest shit? Like this is a thing. Has happened. I tried looking it up online, but just see more about like Japanese culture and like is this like a degenerate phenomenon, but at least one that has a name, unlike in the West, where it's like, what is this? Um, oh yeah, oh here it is, here it is. Sitting opposite me were a couple who appeared to be mother and son. Though younger than I, the son looked almost exactly like me. The two were chatting like lovers, their faces pressed close together. Watching them, I realized the son, at least, was conscious how much erotic pleasure he was giving his mother. This was a classic case of a kind of attractive force that I knew well. It was a classic case, too, of a kind of will that turns this world of ours into a hell. And yet, I mean, what is this?
It's getting
What is this?
pretty
And he
crazy
knows it
stuff.
well.
He
Um,
knows it well. I mean, yeah, I mean, like my first impetus, of course, is like what did Eastern culture do when the Oedipus complex got over? Or is this a specifically Japanese thing? And I have no idea. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to leave it alone. I'm just going to say the main problem, not problem, the main thing to take away is like, not only does he see himself in this person who he doesn't know, he knows everything. Like, of course, I know everything about this. And that doesn't help, that sort of over knowing of paranoia, because paranoia depends on what? I mean, it depends on a supposed information that you have access to that others don't. And for him, I think there's a sense that writing it down puts it in its right brain domain. Like, okay, I have all these paranoid thoughts. I know this is not true. And there's something about the writing that is like, you know, at least I can save this or something. I can save my experience. I can save the day.
I mean, I don't even. I mean, one thing that was said in Life of a Stupid Man, he's talking to a student, and he says, you young people have a strong will to live, don't you? And the student's like, well, yes, and don't you? And like, no, but I have a will to create. And I
Yeah.
don't. So it's like I just feel like, yeah, he's doing this because it's like it's something to make, like it's something to it's material to like put out there. Like there are times when I just feel like writing something and I don't know what exactly, but I
Do you
want.
think it's like a concrete that he just I just think in spinning gears, it's like there's something concrete here that's giving him death on the installment plan. Like he's deferring it as long as he's writing, he's not dead or
Maybe,
something.
maybe
Maybe or something.
I
I'm not
don't know.
saying it right, but
I
because
mean,
there's so many things in here where I'm like, ouch.
yeah, I don't.
I mean, for everyone reading, this is a distinctly not boring work of literature. It is totally wild. It's all over
Yeah,
the place.
it's. I mean, because it has. I mean, that detail might be like the most obviously colorful, but it's like there's all sorts of other stuff. Like I opened Taine's History of English Literature and perused the lives of the poets. Every one of them was unhappy. Even the giants of Elizabethan age, Ben Jonson, the greatest scholar of his day, had succumbed to such a case of nervous exhaustion that he saw the armies of Rome and Carthage launching a battle on his big toe. I couldn't suppress my wicked glee at their misfortune. I just love that ending. This like I couldn't suppress. Like I know it's shameful. I know it's awful that I have this wicked glee, this naked Schadenfreude. But it's like
Well,
I
and of course,
have it.
and well, and that fits with how hilarious the image is of an army fighting on a toe. I mean, that's just silly.
It's just so perfect. And it's like, and then he goes off to like his monk friend, and yeah. Um,
And he's like, he can't, he can't really hold it together. It's like, are you all right? Well, still taking tons of medicine, of course. The sleeping pills alone are bad enough. Veronal, neuronal, trional, pneumal, and then the note is like only one of those is like a real thing. Isn't
yeah,
that what the note says? So he still has a sense of humor. He's making up medications.
yeah, it's no, he's such it's aesthete in a certain way of like, soon I was disturbed by a small white signboard hanging from the eaves of a shop. It was emblazoned with the trademark, an automobile tire with wings. This made me think of an ancient Greek who relied on man-made wings. He flew high into the sky and those wings were burned by the sun and he plunged into the ocean and drowned. To Madrid, to Rio, to Samarkand. I had to scoff at my own reverie, but neither could I help thinking of Orestes pursued by the Furies. And I just like that. I especially like the ending because it's like, yes, here he is he is Orestes, as it were. Um, in a certain sense of like he's haunted by his own sense of sin. He's haunted by his own life in this way. He's going mad like Orestes with these visions of, I mean, he's not seeing Furies, but the paranoiac things that keep coming up, including like just tire with wings, and that brings him back to the image of Furies. Like, yeah, it's just so relevant to everything.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's kind of cool because like so there's like three cultures at once. So there's sin, which there's another Japanese word, but I'm assuming it would only be sin, Christian sin, right? So you have sin, but it's not against Christian God the Father, it's against, the Furies. And, even the greatest of gods, Zeus himself, was no match for those gods of vengeance, the Furies. And I think one of the things that there's a theme in here of like so when you lack a heaven but you have a hell, well, that is like ancient Greece.
yeah,
There is a sense of an underworld, but not a celestial kingdom. Oh my God, that's the Mormon version. I don't know why I said that, but okay. you know? Sure, whatever. And how
God's getting to you, man.
it's getting to me, but how I'm kind of like, well, yeah. I mean, I think it's one thing where like obviously I don't like personally I don't have a belief in like an afterlife or anything, but like well, yeah, if one had to exist, of course it'd be hell. I mean, if one had to exist, it can't be heaven. That's ridiculous. So I'm kind of with him. Like I like it just happens a lot because he's so hounded that of course he projects hounding as an infinite process.
Yeah, and it's like, it just keeps happening to the damn guy. Of like, he's at their little like, well, not monk. It's just a guy who lives in the basement of a Bible store or whatever publisher. And he borrows a copy of Crime and Punishment, and then he opens up the book of Crime and Punishment, and it's the part of Brother Karamazov where Ivan's talking to the devil, and it's like he looks at the book. I looked at the cover, Crime and Punishment. The book was Crime and Punishment. That was certain. The binder had accidentally included pages from the wrong book. That I had, in turn, it accidentally opened the book to those misbound pages. I sensed the agency of the finger of destiny and felt compelled to read the passage. Before I had read in a single page, however, my entire body began to tremble. It was a scene in which the devil torments Ivan. Ivan and Strindberg and Maupassant, and here in this room, me. It's again just
Hmm.
just so haunted by it all. And again, I just love how it's like he's just obsessed with these writers. Oh yeah, by the way, Strindberg and Maupassant apparently had themselves seen the devil, so like that was why he references them.
Why those particular ones? Yeah, I mean, and he also has the quote from himself, life is more hellish than hell itself, which brings us back to more earthly suffering. But experienced, it's like part of how he makes sense of his suffering is it gains a little bit of meaning if it's eternal.
Yeah, it's no,
Maybe? Eh.
I think that makes sense that it would. I I mean the whole thing here is like yeah, this whole this whole section is like yeah, either he's going to be institutionalized or he's going to kill himself. These are the only two options available for dear Akutagawa. Um, and well, he's seen his mother be institutionalized, so I mean that's the thing actually that's also like a continual fear for him is going mad like her, and if he tells people about him, like he wants to confess about like all of these things happening to him, but he doesn't want to well end up in a mental institution like his mother did,
Right.
which is a horrific place to be to have nowhere to turn like that. Um, um,
Yeah, I mean, well, he also kind of turns away from people. I mean, he wants to not be recognized. But I think that's also kind of a natural thing, kind of in a wounded animal sense. Like this whole thing, he's kind of retreating.
yeah, it's weird. I mean, well, one thing that's interesting is like you can. I've had the situation where someone compliments me on something or some work I've done, and they're genuinely admiring, and I just am sort of like almost repelled by it. Not because it's like insincere or I don't know, like I dislike the person as it were, but I just like stop it almost. That's my reaction. So like when he does that, when like someone comes up to him to like say he admires his work, it's like yeah, I know a little bit of that in my own little I don't know talks I've given.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there is a sense also that for someone like Akutagawa at this point, who's pretty famous, it's not going to go anywhere. Like someone's going to come up and they're going to want one of like five total things from him.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to mention like the odd dichotomy in Akutagawa as a human being, which we've mentioned before, like between reason and emotion in this weird way, and like there's this, I think his nephew, my wife's younger brother. I don't know, one of these things. It's basically to me. He said, "You can be strongly detached from all things human 1 minute, and the next thing I know, you have these incredibly intense human desires, and and like, and then it could have like, well, sure, I can be good, and the next thing you know, I'm bad. No, it's not so much good and bad as that you've got these opposites in you that are you mean like a grown up with a child inside? No, not that either. I don't know. I can't put it very well, but maybe it's like two poles of electricity, sort of like having two opposites in one. And it's like, that's just interesting. Like that fact about Akutagawa that he's at once tremendously cold and detached, and another just having these incredibly intense human desires. And like, you see that in, um, throughout not this one, but Life of a Stupid Man. Like he desperately wants those sparks. He desperately loves the little Cezanne landscape. And then in other ways, it's like he's utterly detached from things, and he's a terrible father and husband, and doesn't he just doesn't have a will to live.
Yeah.
But it's like it's this weird way. Oh, it's
Yeah.
like both inextricably combined in him, two poles of electricity. I like that way of putting it. As it were, it's not perfect, but it's nice and certain.
Well, I mean, think about how it ends, right? I mean, like, what's wrong? Nothing. I'm fine. With a great effort, she raised her face from the mat and forced herself to smile as she went on to explain. It wasn't any one thing. I just had this feeling that you were going to die, Papa, and this was the most terrifying experience of my life. And then just interjects, I don't have the strength to keep writing this. I mean, both polarities are right there. There's like an exhaustion at life at the same point of love of experience.
Well, yeah, well, in this, I mean, that kind of naked fear that, I mean, it's because the thing is, he feel in that in towards the end here in particular, like he feels like haunted by death. Like,
Yeah.
like death is actually hounding him, and here it's like someone else saying that to him. It's like even, I mean, it's your worst fears coming true in that instant. Um, not words of affirmation. Um, I just read the posthumous remark. It's like, I don't have the strength to keep writing this. To go on living with this feeling is painful beyond description. Isn't there someone kind enough to strangle me in my sleep?
Yeah, he's done. He's
Yeah,
cooked.
yeah, he needs some immediate uh psychiatric intervention right here if he's to survive. Um there's no getting that together
Yeah,
alone, frankly. Poor guy.
poor guy. Okay, so overall,
Yeah.
if are we good to go? Like a couple minutes, like overall thoughts?
Yeah, let's do overall.
Because we read Hellscreen and a couple other different stories together, and then now we're reading them here. I kind of think this is one where the blurb is actually just the best way to describe it. So it's from Murakami, who's like the only fitting person alive to write this because he's the most famous living Japanese novelist. Um, and spine-tingling brilliance, intuitive, natural, and beautiful. I'm like, yeah, I think I think the only thing missing there is the sad, but that's not all the stories. But the spine-tingling brilliance in Hellscreen, there's nothing like it. I don't think I've read anything that made me feel that way.
Yeah, there's just a perfection to Hell Screen. It might be the greatest short story ever written.
Yeah.
That I get the only other thing in my mind is Gerhard Hauptmann's Flagman Feel. That's like competitive with this, um, which is equally tragic.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's stuff that's more subdued and just as good. I mean, A Simple Heart is just
yeah,
as
Simple
good,
Heart is also.
but it's not related. I mean, if we're
Yeah, no,
talking
no,
about
no.
like,
It's related in a very broad sense. It's a much more slower, gentler sort of story. But just God, I reread that actually last week because of reading with a friend. Um,
good. Um,
but
I think
yeah,
that the closest story in the Western canon that gave me the same feeling is The Unknown Masterpiece by Balzac, but it's still not quite. It's almost like The Unknown Masterpiece could walk, so this could run. Like there's something similar, but there's something more, almost more aggressive in this one.
like with any unknown masterpiece, it doesn't it has this really sort of ironic turn of though this great artist who spent years of his life on a work that is nothing.
Yeah.
It's like created its own sort of fantasy in his mind about what it is after so many endless alterations. It's got a similar sort of tragedy to it of, but a man realizing that the work he was doing wasn't very good, even years of that, is not quite as devastating as watching you basically burning your own daughter alive.
Right. I mean, yeah,
It's just not as striking of an image, let's be honest. There is in A Simple Heart a very striking image, which I feel actually is comparable, and that's the woman sort of seeing her dead parrot as the Holy Spirit. I know that's a very odd thing to say for those who haven't read it, but it's heartbreaking when it happens. Um,
yeah. And I mean, and obviously, like we're being a little hyperbolic. There's great short stories that do numerous things, but in terms of like just a personal favorite, it's funny. My second favorite's also Japanese, but we haven't read him yet. It's Junji Ito, who's a living horror writer. Has a story um, about. I always get the name wrong. It's Yeah, The Enigma of Amigara Fault, which I'll have you read at some point, is one of my favorites. It does some very similar stuff. And there's a couple others, but yeah, I mean basically I'm fine saying this is like in the top 10 best works of short fiction.
Certainly top 10. There's no way
Sure.
there's 10 other works better than this.
Yeah. It's
There's
like
no
God
possible
himself.
way. There's no fucking way.
God,
Um,
God himself is going to come down and edit our list otherwise.
yeah, like,
Um, yeah, thank you for doing this. I mean, it's always fun to read him, and it's kind of tragic because there's kind of a limited amount, you know?
yeah. There's a couple other short story like there's and then some of the other ones he did outside of this collection that I've read are like shockingly good.
Kappa, Kappa.
Man Immigrants. There's one that I don't know, it's hauntingly good in just a couple pages. But yeah. I mean, my takeaway from this, I mean, for me, it is just I've had this range of emotions, in
Yeah,
all of them. Like it's just like I've had this. There were time. I remember when I first read it, I was like, "This is I love this, but this is some dark places he's in." And then later in my life, or less like a couple of years, it's like, yeah, oh yeah, I've been there. Like I know, I know, I felt like this is exactly how I felt. You know, like yeah, I have a little to live, but I have a little to create, and like there have been moments where it feels like that,
yeah,
um, and it's like how he's able to capture both the just an utterly fragile, ephemeral, delicate beauty of life, along with the the tragedy and
yeah.
the tediousness and the pain. It's like it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
And so sometimes it's kind of hard when it's like this is one of the founding short story writers of Japanese literature. Sorry, I can't get comfortable in this. I have tatami mats in this room. And sometimes it's like a little cliched, but it's like, what are you gonna say? It's like, okay, so this is one of the great writers of all time, and the reason he's great is because of his portrayal of the human experience. And you're like, obviously we did better
How about
than
we
that, but
read
like,
like Sophocles about human fate? Uh,
yeah, yeah, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly
that's
exciting.
it. But it's like but these specific thing. They try. I did notice like the
Yeah.
generalities I was trafficking in, but it's like you know, they were concrete enough. You gave enough.
No, no, they're there, but I mean, there's nothing against what you're saying. It's just, well, that's what,
What can you
yeah.
do? What can you
What can you
do?
do? So,
Um,
if you want the specifics, it's much more specific. But what's one aspect that's beautiful, of course, is that unlike a lot of writing where it's the author's somewhat removed to reach perfection, he's there so much.
yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Ray. That was really
Chris, I really was happy to reread these guys.
dang.
We'll do Dat Sign next time, which will is darker, I think. You could argue either way.
You
Uh,
could almost argue he was a somehow less happy man.
somehow a less happy man. All right, see you, Chris.
See
Bye.
you later. Bye bye.